Okay, we're on Daf Pei. It's actually Ayin Tes Amadalid, but it starts a new mimer. The mimer begins with the quote from Yeshaya: You'll pour out water and joy from the well springs of rescue. Now, throughout the whole year, there was always Nisuch Hayayin. There was the pouring of wine on the Mizbeach. And this is clearly in Torah in many places. And on Sukkos, there was also the Nisuch Hamayim, the pouring of water throughout these 7 days. But that's only Halacha L'Moshe Misinai. It's not explicit in Torah. It's the Rabbanon that is learned out Smucha Akroi. We hang it on a pasuk, but it doesn't say it anywhere literally or explicitly. And this pouring of water was with great simcha, b'shaptamayim b'sasan, like it's explained in the Gemara. So the question is, why don't we find this even listed out at all in Torah Shebichsav? So in order to understand this, we back up and we're first going to talk about the Nisuch Hayayin. Regarding wine, it says in Sefer Shoftim, will I restrain myself from the wine that hamisamech elokim va'anashim, that makes God and people happy. Wine makes God and people happy. This is understood to be a metaphor for the characteristic of bina, like we say, Eim habanim is simcha, because simcha is when you have something that was hidden and has now been brought out. It's now been revealed, and that's what bina does. It draws out what is contained within chachma. It draws it out through comprehension and understanding, that you understand something so thoroughly that it enlivens you, which is not the case when a person doesn't understand something thoroughly. He's just sort of scratching around for it. It remains hidden in his chachma. It doesn't produce that same type of simcha. Now, Bina is also called Gan Eden. It's also called the hidden world. And this is what the Levim used to do. Like it says, V'avid halevi hu, that is he is the service, but it's this ambiguous pronoun that he draws out this identity that is heretofore hidden, that was somewhat separated, that is embedded within Bina, that now becomes revealed. And this is through song, and the song that is sung specifically in association with wine, which again is the characteristic of Bina. Now, this idea that wine rejoices man and God, that brings godliness to be revealed to people through understanding that we comprehend the infinity of Hashem, that inflames the neshama. This is also what we experience with literal wine, that it causes a simcha and a revelation. Like we know, when the wine goes in, the truth comes out. What then is the difference between the pouring of the wine throughout the year and during the time of Moedim L'Simcha, specifically on Sukkos, which is a dedicated time of Zman Simcha Sein? We now are actually on Daf Pei. That here was also the pouring of the wine. So this is like a person who is very excited from some matter. That even though that this excitement may be contained within himself, but when it runs through himself, yet people don't know. But when a person is exceedingly excited about something, he's so happy, he can't contain himself. He sings, he dances, he claps. It's absolutely evident in his body language, and it cannot be contained within his identity, this great joy that he has. So too, the rest of the year, we are, of course, hopefully impacted by godliness in a way of Mamalik Kolam and Seviv Kolam. But it still remains contained within us. This light of joy remains subdued and contained within our humanity. Come Sukkos, now the simcha is so great that it can't be contained, and we intuitively start to respond to it and act out upon it. This is the great excitement, and therefore there's dancing and jumping up and down. How much more so in a spiritual sense when a person pours out his praises of Hashem, like the Ophanim angels who cry out in great clamor. This is the Nisuch Hayayin throughout the year. And on Sukkos, there's also the Nisuch Hayayin, the pouring of the wine. The pouring of the water is exclusive to Sukkos. And when we pour the water in this way, we mix the two together. The pouring of the wine is Bina. The pouring of the water is Chachma. It is a far more profound level that exceeds even the level of the pouring of the wine. And this is also indicated in the concept of the Kohanim and the Levim. Like it says in the Zohar, that wine is the characteristic of the Levim, and the side of the Kohanim is the clearer water. because the nature of water is that it's the rain that comes from the clouds down to the street. That's the level of the Kohen, who draws down this characteristic even of the Kohen Gadol, and from there to all the Kohanim. The Kohen Gadol starts off and he passes it down through all the Kohanim to the people. Wine is the character of the Levium. It is an elevation from something lower to something higher. It elevates it up to the loftiest of levels with enthusiasm and song. And is revealed, like we say, the Gemara in Shabbos, the play on the word called Bali Shir, Yetzim Bashir. That is, it's understood metaphorically. It's not the literal translation in that context, but it's metaphorically the idea of enthusiastic song, which is not the case with water. Water is still, like the Kohanim, that their service was done in silence, in contrast to the Leviim, whose service was done vocally. So to the Kohanim are, in that sense, loftier, closer to Hashem than the Leviim, like it says, the pasuk Yivol Alecha Vishartucha, that they will accompany them. So too, the pouring of the water, which is represented by the silent service of the Kohanim, is a more profound service than the pouring of the wine, which is representative of the lyrical song of the Levium. Oispeis. Now, in Torah Shebichsav and Torah Shebal Peh, we have a similar idea. In Torah Shebichsav, we focus exceedingly on the letters. All of Torah is Hashem's description. Every letter has to be absolutely precise. There can never be an extra letter or a diminished letter. Every letter has to be perfectly shaped and cannot be contacting another letter, as all the laws of a Sefer Torah. Now, letters are the concept of Bina. Like we see, that when you want to express yourself, you have to use letters, both internally in thought and certainly externally in speech. Chachma, though, is higher than anything you can specifically grasp, and there are no, quote, letters there. And these are the letters of Torah. That Torah Shebichsav is Bina, which is called a Sefer Torah, because it has the specific letters, even if they're the letters that are personal and internal. They are still letters that come from Chachma, that are expressed down to us in Bina. And Torah Shebal Peh is the level of Chachma where letters, the precise letters, are not as rigid. It's the conceptual idea. It's the seichel that is primary, that is manifest through the letters. And that's why we're not as particular when it comes to the letters of Torah Shebal Peh. Because in Torah Shebal Peh, the primary is the wisdom that it is communicating, where we ask the question, why does one Tana hold this way and so forth, where we're much more interested in the conceptual idea than we are in the specific letters. Now we understand that the pouring of the wine that's written in Torah and the pouring of the water is not written in Torah. It's, quote, only halach l'mesh misina, because wine, which is Bina, is Torah Shebichsav, and this is the wine of Torah, like we'll explain. And therefore it can be written in Torah Shebichsav, which is not the case in the pouring of the water, which is Chachma, which cannot be written in Torah Shebichsav, that is spread out in the letters of that are written down, which is the Moichen of Abba and the Moichen of Ema. And now we understand why it says that your love is more beautiful than wine. It is more dear to God, the words of the Soifrim, the authors, than the wine of Torah. And what is this odd word, Soifrim, and why do we call it the wine of Torah? So we explain that in three matters, the Sefer Yetzirah writes that Hashem create the world. B'soifer, b'sefer, b'siper. Soifer is Chachma, that's the scribe, that then transmits to the Sefer, to the book, which is the understanding, Bina, which then is the thought. And then the Sipor, the story, is the relating of it through Dibor, that receives from the book, which is Bina, which receives from the thoughts, which is Soifer. And this is the three ideas or the three mechanisms through which Hashem created the world. That it starts with Dvar Hashem, this word of Hashem, that's the story. And this receives from the thought, which is the book, which receives from the wisdom, which is the author. And this is why it's Bereshis Bara, through the Chachma, it manifests into the Machshava, and from Machshava into speech. And this is why it says that it is sweeter for me, the words of the Soifrim, the Sofer, the author, the Chachma, the root of Torah Shebal Peh, and the pouring of the water is more dear than the wine of Torah, the Torah Shebichsav, which is called the Sefer, the level of Bina, the book where it's now been laid out. And the pouring of the wine, which is the Chachma, which is the author, the Sefer, is even more personal, more lofty than the level of Bina, which is the level of Sefer. Together with this idea that Chachma is higher than Bina, and nevertheless Chachma and Bina are two inseparable friends, and therefore there has to be a constant unity between them, like Isrusa de la Sat and Isrusa de la Eila. And therefore, the pasuk says, "You will pour out the water in joy." Water is the level of Chachma. You will pour out with joy, which is the level of Bina. And in this manner, we join together Chachma and Bina to be these two inseparable friends. And this is why during the Simchas Pesach She'eva, it was specifically the scholars who danced during the pouring of the water. So, what is this idea of the well springs of rescue, Maimone HaYeshua? So, first we look at the pasuk in Tillim that says, "A cup of rescue I lift up." Kos Yeshuas Esa. That David HaMelech said this regarding his midah, which is the midah of Malchus of Atzilus, which is called the Kos Yeshuas, the cup of salvation, like it says in the Zohar. Now, with this cup, he blesses that there should be rescue to above, that he takes it and he places it before him, like it is with Dibor. For example, that this is the kli in which he invests the keiches hanefesh, the seichel, and the midah. So too, Malchus is the kli in which it expresses that gift from all of the 10 spheros. And this is what Hillel says on Simchas Pesach She'eva. If I am here, then all is here, like it says in the Zohar. That if the Shechina, which is called Ani, is here, then everything is here. What then is Yeshua's desire says? This is the right hand, based on the pasuk that says he rescues him with his right hand, meaning the 5 thorns that surround and protect the rose. These are the 5 gvuras. The 5 gvuras have been sweetened by the 5 chasadim, and even though they're thorns, they're there to be protective of this delicate flower. And this is that idea of rescue that the Malchus of Atzilus manifests itself in Biyah. Like it says, the feet come down to death, and therefore there has to be this level of Yeshua's to rescue, that it should not be any hijacking from the Chitzenim, regarding which David says, Kos Yeshua's Esa, that it should lift up this cup, to elevate it to that level where no evil can touch it. And this is what we mean by Mayane HaYeshua, from the wellsprings of rescue. This is the Mayan that is drawn out from the Yeshuas for the Kaishal Bracha, regarding which it says in other places the explanation of the word Nivarech of Birchas HaZimoin. We say before benching, like it says in Raya Mehemna, in the idea of the source and the Mayan, the wellspring and the well, that this is the Bericha, the stream that is drawn from there, from the origin. And this is what it means when it says Nivarech. It should be connected to draw out this cup of blessing that receives from this Bericha, this connection, which is from the wellspring of rescue. Now, based on what we said above, we explain in the idea of Nisuch HaMayim that it cannot be written down in Torah Shebichsav, because it is the level of Sefer. It is the level of the author that is higher than anything that can be captured in a book, regarding which we say we celebrate the Hakafis on Shmini Atzeres, which isn't even written in Torah Shebal Peh. It's just a minute, because it is such a lofty level, Makif and the Alba, that it can't be captured in mere words. Your opinion. Close to this, we explain in other places the idea that Ma'ariv is optional, because it's such a lofty level that a Serusa de la Sata cannot reach, and therefore it has to be optional. It can't be obligatory, like we explained. The loftier it is, the less it's capturable in some specific directive. And this is what it means to Shabta Mayim B'Sasa, and there should be this great simcha, which is understood from what it explains in other places, B'Yem Hashmini Atzeres. The level of Chachma radiates from a distant level, like it says, I have spoken and it is wise, but it is distant from me. And now we're on Amadal. And this is also what it means, that Miriam stood from a distance, that Chachma is called the sister. Miriam, Moshe's sister, stood off at a distance to watch him in the basket. The level of Bina is closeness, when you really understand something. Like his mother comforts him. And the mother is Bina, like we explained. That Simcha is when you get it, you understand it, it's revealed to you. But on Sukkos, there is also to the level of Chachma brought to the Neshama, a Chachma that radiates in a close manner, like Bina. And that's why we say that the wise son, the Chacham, rejoices when he's a Chacham. This is that distinctive opportunity on Sukkos to have a Bina closeness with a level that's ordinarily more remote, the level of Chachma. And this is why it's Simchas Pesach She'eva, the Mayim Chayim, the Chachmilah that is drawn down. and brings about this closeness of Eim Habanim Smecha, that this simcha is revealed. That is, that this is revealed the Moich and the Abba to the level that it's Moich and the Eima, and the power for this is through Tshuva on Yom Kippur. Like we say, Lifnei Hashem Tataharu, become closer to Hashem, that through Tshuva we motivate Hashem that his Kesser, that is higher than Chachma, should be revealed to us. And this is similar to the idea that a Chacham suddenly has new ideas that fall to him, seemingly out of nowhere, because he is capable of receiving this abundant light. So too, by the idea of tshuva, that a distant person becomes close, it's also a gift from above. This is the level of a chachma, but it's distant from him. Additionally, this is the idea that is explained. They got it to Levanechel. And on Yontif, we mentioned the idea of simcha, the way it is of moichin de'ema, the way it is of comprehension. But on Shabbos, it's moichin de'abba, that this is higher than comprehension, where it's not shy at the level of simcha, but only the level of bittul, like the idea of the clear water of chachmilah, where it's so clear you can't even describe it as chachma because it's incapturable. But through Shabbos, Shabbos, and Yom Kippur, which is the level that is higher of Shabbos and chachmilah, therefore it is drawn down on Sukkos that it should be a chachma radiating within the person. Therefore, there is a simcha in Nisach Hamayim, which is the simcha of bittul. And therefore, there is this idea, Mayane HaYeshua, that there should be no opportunity for it to be hijacked by the Chitzainim, because the Chachma pushes them away. And this is the Simcha that comes about through the level of Bittul.